Hello everybody, Larry Young here again with another segment of OLaMan Living Life with Purity. And today I want to talk about the high cost of low expectations and what comes with the cost of when we don't hold people around us, whether they be service providers or people in control of our government or at work. Things like this, our bosses or the policies and things like this. When policies and determinations of how things are going to be dealt with in that particular community, whether it be the workplace, your community, your church, whatever it is, when policies changed and they're brought down from a higher standard to a lower standard, there's a cost that goes with that. And the cost can range from either fewer services being provided, lower quality services being provided in these situations, in these trade-offs. You just don't know, but typically it's not increasing the services or the help that is supposed to be given in these cases. When there's a lessening of policy or the lessening of the expectations, there's going to be a cost to you someplace else in your life or in your ability to get work done. So when you have somebody like the EPA or somebody like that comes down and changes a policy regarding surface water restrictions or something like this may change the way a farmer has to go about irrigating fields or even taking care of his animals, making sure they have plenty of water. So there's all sorts of things can happen that have extended costs down the line. And there's so many instances you go into. It can happen in your education. It can happen in your roads. It can happen in even your trash collection if they change a policy as far as what can go into landfills and what can't. So there's a direct correlation between when services and expectations upon the community are lessened, that we're not expecting so much out of these people. They don't take care of their own backyards, and somebody else has to come in and take care of that. We see this a lot of times in blighted neighborhoods, or when we have encampments of homeless people, that they take over areas and then they blight them and they pretty much go to destroy the infrastructure and services that were put there for the rest of society to use. But when we don't have expectations of these folks who say, okay, we can just let them go, they're not hurting anything. Well, in the long run, they're destroying everything around them that had been built for the good of the community before that. And so a destructive force enters into the situation, and that is evil by its nature, as I talked about before. God is good. God creates. God builds. Evil destroys, takes apart, basically does a basic destruction path through. Evil's basis is not of construction. It's about destruction and demolition. So we have to watch out for these things in our world each day and see how, when you see things on the news, how these things are being portrayed to make you think a certain way and have a lower expectation. In the result, you have to settle for less and less and less. And as we look around the last few years, there's been more of these passes across our country and our world, especially about we need to expect less in our lives. We should travel less. We should not spend money on certain things that are certain luxuries and things like this that we shouldn't be giving ourselves as rewards and things like this. It's going to get worse. I heard someone the other day was talking about even to take away pet ownership, because they say pets are not a helpful situation to our society. They actually are a drain, which I think is completely wrong, because the more that they take things away and they get us to have disassociations with each other and settle into our cell phones and our social media things and less engaging with each other in spirited talks and conversations, just gathering together, the more that they can separate us into these non-social segments, the more they can lower your expectation on what it is that's going to make you content in your life and less likely to complain or become an issue for those in power and are trying to keep the world under their control. So we're in a real battle right now. The costs that go with lowering your expectation always come back to bite you later on. They always do. There hasn't been anything yet where I've seen where there's been lower expectations where there's been a benefit. They've lowered the expectations on our students for college admissions. They've lowered the expectations on families and what they should be working on and concentrating on. They're lowering the expectation of God and his role in things. They want to diminish him. They say God's just a fake story to try to keep the masses under control. These arguments keep coming back. They keep being thrown at our societies, and what happens historically is a lot of people will rally to it and say, yeah, hang the monster, type of thing, when they come to find out that the monster is really them. And until they find that out, they are all for, let's get the monster. And then when they find out that the monster has been them the whole time, then they're a little bit more quiet about things. They say, well, not this monster, the other monster. We got to get that one. He's the bad one. And so this is where you get these identity camps are coming in. It's not, we're not the monster, they're the monster. And these are all byproducts of low expectations out of whether it be our elected officials, even a family member. We've talked about this before on here. You can't keep making excuses for people. Somebody hurts you or somebody does something to harm you or take you off your known path, who you are. When somebody comes along to do that, don't make excuses for them. Say, no, I don't appreciate that. I'm going to keep going, but thank you. But please, don't bother me with this type of thinking because I don't agree with it. And that's okay to say, and then to walk away. And a lot of times people may be trying to oversuggest or demand that you change because they think they're so right in their opinion on things, but they are really being led in a wrong direction right now. So this is why it's so important right now to know who you are, make sure you stay in that lane, be the stable figure inside the snow globe as all the snowflakes are shaking around you here in these events. Stay strong, stay stable. I know I've said it before, but make sure right now because it's ramping up even more and more. We saw this last week in the news, our Pope Francis met with all the members of the G7 summit, gave them all a photo opportunity, and basically gave his glad hand to all these politicians to be able to use back home and around the world is how they are in basically what they tried to say, that they were in concert with the Pope, that they are all in agreement, when that was not the case at all. The Pope spent a lot of time talking about the problems in Ukraine and how the death has to stop there. I looked it up, and so far in the Ukraine, there's been 30,000 deaths since Russia started its infiltration a few years ago. I don't know exactly what year. I don't know it was 2021 or 2020. But there's been 30,000 reported casualties, deaths among the Ukrainians. A lot more physical damages, but they won't report because they don't want to give the other side critical information to know if their tactics have been successful or not. So in times of war, the politicians and the states lie. It's typical of their actions. But in the deaths, it's hard to hide the deaths. They will underreport or overreport depending on what they're trying to do as far as sensationalize the news cycle. But what we've had in the Ukraine was 30,000 reported deaths, and I've gone to several different sources on that. Now, with all these G7 leaders that he had there the other day, I looked it up. Between the combination of all these world leaders and their countries, there's 300,000 deaths every month of unborn children. Not a single word was mentioned about the rise in abortion rates in the world and what is going on in these countries, that the Pope was basically giving all these politicians, great photo opportunity in a meeting and being very, very generous with them. And then with 100 comedians, North American comedians that went there. Whoever thought that was a good idea obviously hadn't watched any of these clips of what these comedians have been saying over their careers about people who go to church or Catholics in particular and the Pope. And the Pope said it's okay to make fun of God. Now, okay, if it's okay to make fun of God, let's, take a look back in history of people who did mock God and what happened to them. It wasn't a very good outcome for them. So for him to say it's okay to mock God, and these are low expectations, and what it's going to have is a terrible effect later on, because there isn't a single one of these comedians is going to measure their comments with a post-joke statement as to what it was their intention was. They're going to let it go, and the folks in the media and the folks who are receiving this are going to take it as being just another factual report of news and not a joke as it is. We see this a lot with one of the candidates running for president right now. They'll say a lot of things in jest, and the group he's speaking to gets it, but the next day the media goes after one little sentence, which may have been the punchline, and then turns it all into, he's a Hitler, he's this, he's that, blah, 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 and it just is funny that everyone wants to say that one candidate is the rebirth of Hitler and going to, destroy democracy on day one, blah, 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 all this stuff. And you would think if they were that concerned about Hitler coming back, that the world, with all of its intelligence and its might and its critical thinking in this thing, would run a far better candidate than what they're offering right now if it's to save democracy in the free world. And this is what you're offering up? Please. This is the high cost of low expectations. So, frustrating going on right now, but please don't fall into the trap. Please don't become part of the low expectation. Have high expectations. We need to take our role in this world back. We need to expect more out of ourselves and those around us. We can't have low expectations because the cost is way too high. Inevitably, it'll be the end of God having a place in our society altogether. God will be put to our back rooms, our catacombs, if you will. We're going to have to hide our beliefs and our thinking and mask this stuff because of the hubris that'll be coming at us from the other side of the coin. I mean, there's over 50% of the population doesn't believe that God exists. That's a terrible way to go about life. So, the high cost of low expectations. So, think about that a little bit today. I'd love to hear your comments on it. I know this is kind of thrown out there in a moment, but it's very, very important right now that we raise our expectations on ourselves and those around us. We need to pray for each other, and we need to expect more out of each other. And we need to say things when we're not being given the level of service that we think we should for what we're paying for it. So we can't keep taking this lower expectation. So let's have a great day. Let's think about these things. Stay on with the 9-month novena with Cardinal Burke. Pray for our country each day. If you can't take the time to settle in for a full rosary and dedication on that, take a few moments just to be mindful of what's going on. And it doesn't have to take long. You could think about it even just that time while you're brushing your teeth or getting ready for the day, shaving, whatever it is you're doing. Just take a few moments and associate that with our country and our needs and our brothers and sisters all over the world right now who really need to get out of this tantrum phase, and we need to get back to work and raise our expectations. So in the meantime, I love you, and I'll be back.